out here, my fingers are killing me from the chemo. I'm out here the whole time.
Can't make it up.
No.
All right, let's get the party rolling.
Okay, welcome everybody. Colleen, start.
The meeting tonight is for the conduct of town business by the town board. Public is invited to participate in items marked on the agenda of public comment. During that segment of the meeting, if you have a question or comment for the supervisor, please raise your hand and wait to be acknowledged. Please state your full name and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Thank you for your anticipated cooperation.
Okay, thank you very much. Tonight we have public hearing, January 8th, 2024, 7 p.m. Local law of the town of Marlborough, Ulster County, New York, amending various provisions of the Chapter 155 zoning of the Marlborough Town Code as follows: amending Section 155-1, adding definitions for cannabis, cannabis establishment, cannabis on-site consumption establishment, cannabis products, and cannabis retail dispensary. Section 155-12, use regulations and loading sections 155-32.5, cannabis/marijuana retail sales and lounges. And we also have local law of the town of Marlborough, Ulster County, New York, amending various provisions of Chapter 155 zoning of the Marlborough Town Code as follows: amending Section 155-31, site plan review, and Section 155-41.1, ridgelines and steep slope protection. So that's a public hearing. Before we get to public hearing comments, I'm going to say please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for Carl D. Donato, a longtime employee and judge of the town of Marlborough, a business owner and servant of our town who passed away this past week. Please have a moment of silence for Carl. Thank you.
That's not my fault. Make that noise.
It's telling me there's a board meeting.
I turn mine off.
Okay. All right, so thank you everybody for coming tonight. So this is the time in the meeting of a public hearing. I'd ask everybody one at a time come up, and you could talk about the cannabis, you could talk about the zoning 155 code changes, either or. Just keep your remarks to 3 minutes and just state your name for the clerk. Thank you. So, oh, and it's not working up there, Jerry, again? Here we go again. I don't know what to do
There it
here.
is. It's back.
Okay. Got a little technical difficulties today.
Beyond our-
Okay. Who wants to come up and speak? Michael, you want to come up first?
Just go
Yes,
there.
you, Michael. School Superintendent, Michael.
Was it a combination too? I stole that.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Michael Rydell, R-Y-D-E-L-L. I'll begin with a brief narrative. I'm a parent of 3 high school and college age young ladies. I'm also an educator. Specifically, I'm the proud superintendent of the Marlborough Central School District. In both of these roles, I'm in a constant battle against the possible and also the certain dangers and influences that could affect my own children or what amounts to the thousands of children I've been charged with protecting and keeping safe. These dangers and influences come from all angles. Many are a product of social media or online activity, but some can also be found in a community. Ultimately, is the struggle against the conflicting messages our children, my students, receive in a manner that to them must seem like it's 24 hours a day or 7 days a week. Some of these influences, though, are more in our control than others. So for my point for this commentary, I recently read the proposed law that is the subject of this evening's public hearing segment, specific to cannabis retailers. The Board of Education discussed this proposed law, and at last week's meeting, the board unanimously voted to direct me to attend this meeting to voice our collective concern. A directive I wholeheartedly accepted, and quite frankly, feel obligated to be here this evening. While multiple board members also wanted to be here as a symbol of their position on the ideals we discussed, we decided that one or two board members would evidence the position in the same manner. So I'm joined this evening by James Kuha, one of our Board of Education trustees. So I'm recognizing my lane in this matter, so I'll speak specifically to the section that is specific to the distance from a pre-K through grade 12 school. The distance that's being proposed is 500 feet. And this really stood out to me because rarely do we think of 500 feet in this context. But I'll offer a few examples of what 500 feet is. A football field, if you stood at one goalpost and looked at the far goalpost, that's about 360 feet. So then if you then take that and look to the 50-yard line and add that to it, you're almost at 500 feet. But for an example I'll give as we leave this building this evening, if you were to stand on the north end of our property line here outside this building, so not the building itself, but the property line, Walk Hill Savings Bank is 500 feet away. So that would be in compliant with that proposed distance. The beverage center is about 1,000 feet away. So I don't think anyone here as you're leaving would look at those as a great distance from this building or from this property line. And certainly we have to be mindful that that distance does matter, because when you're talking about the distance from a school, an establishment of that nature we would have literally 1,000 students passing by that location each and every single day. So I'm asking you on behalf of the Board of Education, please consider this next step with the level of deliberation we believe it deserves. I respectfully ask that each of you consider expanding the distance beyond 500 feet, ideally significantly beyond 500 feet. And I'll conclude with a thought that I've often shared with my colleagues, and I often remind myself. Our students, our young people, are always watching us. How we act, how we respond, what we prioritize, and what we decide to do. This is a great example of such a meaningful moment. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for all each of you do for this community.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks. Thanks, James. Anybody else? John.
Hello, my name is John Cantone. I'm a resident of Marlborough for about 20 years. I also have two teenagers. One is in the first year of college, one is in junior year of high school. I have start with a question. I kind of think of this I have my own opinions about the marijuana law and how it's been kind of portrayed in parallel to alcohol establishments. I will save you my opinion, because it really doesn't matter at this point. It's a law, and it's there. And what's being proposed here, separate from the distance, is allowed if the municipalities want it. So there's no sense in debating that part of it. However, I personally feel that 500 feet is also too close to a school. If you just think of bus routes, parent routes, any particular school, especially the ones that are actually active, not this one right now, almost everywhere you're going to go by it, past it. And it's not just like a medical place like Curaleaf or one of those places. It's going to be a place of consumption, potentially, based on the law. So I do think, in general, it's too close to a school, and it's just going to be too visible, and the more and more things like that become acceptable, the more and more those things are seen, they become more acceptable, and our teenagers are very influenced by that. But the question I have, and I think since the law itself is paralleled with alcohol establishments, a question to you all is: do we have a similar law in Marlborough about an alcohol establishment? Like, what's the closest one that I could see is the Marlborough Elementary School to the Falcon, and then the restaurants right around there. But the Falcon is the closest. I clocked a quarter of a mile on my odometer, which I don't know how accurate that is, but that's generally a tenth of a mile, 500 feet. So, but is there actually a law that comes close to that in alcohol? No. So there isn't really a precedent there either. But so I guess I'll just leave it with, I just generally agree with Mr. Rydell, and not because I'm a former board member, but because I do think marijuana is a little bit different and should be taken a little more seriously. And I don't know what the right distance is, but more than 500 feet.
Thank you. Appreciate it, John. Yes, come on up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Mary Ellen Glory. I've lived in Marlborough for 31 years, and I live on Marlborough Mountain. In 2002, the Marlborough Town Board adopted an update to the town's comprehensive plan that said, "The natural resources of Marlborough are the town's most important asset and should be protected." The plan also spoke specifically about the ridgeline of our Marlborough Mountains. The 2005 Ridgeland Protection Law was born out of that plan update, and it had a sound planning foundation. Marlborough's law is not particularly stringent compared to some others. The part of the law that your proposal seeks to delete is the part that matters most. No structure shall be located closer than 50 feet in elevation to the ridgeline, and there shall be no disturbance within this 50-foot area except for access driveways. Simple. But delete those lines, and our ridgeline essentially has no protection at all. The Marlborough Ridgeline is a significant feature of our town, and it is an important part of Marlborough's identity. The law preserves the natural landform and rural character of the mountaintop and allows our community to preserve its unique beauty and most important natural resource. The current law's simple restriction for not building closer than 50 feet in elevation to the ridgeline has been in place for 18 years. It's not 500 feet, it's not 200 feet, it's not even 100 feet like many others. It's just 50 feet. That seems to me to provide a good balance between private property rights and protecting the community's natural beauty and resources. If you Google Ridgeline Protection Law, you'll get a ton of results. Laws similar to ours are ubiquitous. They exist everywhere there is a ridgeline, and the people who live there recognize the value of it. Variations of these laws exist in municipalities from coast to coast, in towns, cities, and counties, in suburban areas, in rural areas, and in tourist meccas. If, on the other hand, you Google remove Ridgeline Protection Law, you'll get no results. At least, I didn't get any. And even if there's something out there that I missed, it still makes me wonder, why would any community that has gone to the trouble of protecting its ridgeline want to do away with that protection when it means you risk losing something so special? Our Marlborough Ridgeline is an historical physical feature that is a gift to this community every single day. It is irreplaceable. Delete the 50-foot elevation building restriction from the law, and you'll let the genie out of the bottle. There are no two ways about it. Pass this proposal, and we will lose the ridgeline acre by acre. And once lost, there'll be no getting it back, ever. The Ridgeline Protection Law has done its job. It was passed for the benefit of the citizens of this town. Taking the life out of the law would be short-sighted and do us all a disservice. For the welfare of the community at large, for the many visitors to our community, and for all the future generations of this community, I strongly encourage you to leave the current Ridgeline Protection Law intact and let it continue to do its job for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your input. Thank you. Anybody else? Cindy. Happy New Year.
Hi, Cindy Lanzetta. How privileged are we to live in the Tuscany of the Hudson Valley? The people of Marlborough have long recognized how special our community is because of its proximity to the Hudson River on the east and the Marlborough Mountains on the west. The Marlborough Mountains are a forested area that provide a unique microclimate that helps the growth of the grapes and stone crop fruits that the area is known for. Agriculture and agritourism are Marlborough's economic engine. That is why, even 20 years ago, the town identified the protection of the Marlborough Mountains to be important enough to protect by the ridgeline and steep slope law it enacted. Now the town board is proposing to lessen the protection in such a way that it could negatively impact the development on the ridgeline, leading to clearing and houses instead of forested viewsheds. The current law cites residential development below the top ridgeline by 50 feet. The new law would eliminate that buffer and could lead to people building directly on the top. This is not good planning and is contrary to all the Town of Marlborough planning documents. Since the changes in this law would have a negative effect on the protected Marlborough Mountain ridgeline, the secret documentation should reflect that and require a significant mitigation strategy. Since protection of the Marlborough Mountains is noted in the local waterfront revitalization plan, the New York State Department of State is also party to the SECRA process and must be notified for comment. The Ulster County Planning Board has reviewed the proposed changes and is requiring that the town offer additional protections to the ridgeline law. The Marlborough Town Planning Board has suggested to the town board that a reduced buffer, 40 feet, might be a compromise that would still allow for a two-story home to remain under the ridgeline view. The proposed change to the current law would have a significant impact to the community by allowing additional stormwater runoff, fragmenting forest land, and ruining the viewshed, which would impact agritourism and the economic vitality it attracts. When people come to Marlborough and Milton to the pick-your-owns, the wineries, and the restaurants, they are coming because they are attracted to the beauty of our region. When they step off the boats at Milton or drive up from urban spaces, they are here to enjoy the natural scenery that some of us take for granted. That scenery attracts dollars. Remember the Joni Mitchell song, "Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone?" We need to do better than this for Marlborough. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mickey?
Good evening. Mickey Simonowski, Marlborough, New York. I'm speaking to you at this public hearing with comments and questions in regards to proposed new law for expanding the limits for completion of projects, as well as the proposed change to the ridgeline protection law. I noticed these proposed laws from attending the December Town Board meeting, and it occurred to me that the Conservation Advisory Committee should weigh in on the ridgeline law as part of our responsibility to advise the board on matters affecting natural resources and the environment. I circulated an email to CAC members, and there are a few questions that have resulted from conversations with some of those individuals in regards to the proposed amendment. Councilwoman Sessom responded and sent the CAC an explanation that, quote, "The update will remove the sentence that stipulates development cannot be closer than 50 feet in elevation to the ridgeline affected. We were advised by the town engineer to remove that line, as we are one of the only towns that have that restriction in place. The code doesn't stipulate 50 feet from the highest point, simply 50 feet generally, and thus can be considered overly restrictive to the landowners." Her reply is appreciated, but the amended law takes away all restrictions as to the accepted level of elevation for new buildings. The CAC would like to understand the urgency for enacting this amendment and request some time to review the town engineer's letter of necessity. The beauty of the western boundary of Marlborough cannot be denied. Our comprehensive plan explains the reason for adopting the ridgeline protection law as written for preserving the use and visual appearance of the ridgeline acreage. This is so important to support our agricultural heritage and agritourism, both industries that are our town's economic drivers. In the meantime, I reviewed the town's comprehensive plan, version 2002, where the importance of ridgeline protection is cited, resulting in the ridgeline protection law. The master plan also clearly explains the importance of preserving the vegetation. Quoting, "Construction on steep slopes is difficult and leads to environmental degradation due to increased stormwater runoff and erosion." I also referenced the pages in my written report that will be with you. Just this evening, I also located the updated LWRP of 2017 that also reinforces the need to protect our forested area and preserve our natural resources, especially in regards to agricultural lands and industry. There are other considerations that I feel are worth reviewing. If building restrictions on the ridgeline are removed, it is conceivable that the entire ridgeline could be dotted with assorted housing types. It would be wise to consider the impacts not only of the aesthetic changes this could create, but also erosion, changes in drainage, and more. Light pollution is another concern the CAC has already brought to the attention of the town board that should be considered before enacting this amendment. The amended law also seems to deny the planning board's authority in approving applications when it allows the town engineer to also be the determining voice. At their request, I am conveying some comments from CAC members who are not able to attend tonight. Quote, "So I see there will remain a reference to the tree line. One might ask what the definition of tree line is and why that wording remains. How are the engineers defining it? You could also ask what is to stop someone from altering a tree line by harvesting trees in order to comply to whatever the engineer is using as a reference. It seems odd this is remaining. Is it to placate concerned townspeople?" Mr. Osborne. The second comment, "What is the reasoning and the urgency of this amendment? I feel the board has an obligation to inform the CAC and the public in general about this change in more detail." Janelle Kozarek. These are some of the concerns brought up. In short, I respectfully request that the public hearing not be closed on this issue until the CAC can present comments to the board based on additional research and information from town documents. We did not have the opportunity as a committee to review the changes in the law due to the timing of the announcement of the public hearing on December 11th, as well as the holiday interruptions. There was insufficient time to schedule a special meeting. However, I would place it on this week's meeting agenda to begin our review. I also ask that this letter of comment be included in the minutes of the public hearing, and I will provide that to the secretary. Respectfully submitted, Mickey Simonovsky, Advisory Committee Chair Pro Tem, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
I thank the other speakers for bringing this up to the attention of the public as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up, sir. Come on up. Thank you.
Douglas Glory, Marlborough, New York. Been a resident here since 1970, 53 years. I'm a farmer.
I got you beat.
I love farming. Got it. Okay. How's that? I made two sketches to pass by you as I see the difference from the ridge line as it looks today with the law and the ridge line with what you propose. So they're two simple sketches, but that's why I understand what you want to accomplish. I'm just going to pass that by you so you can see my perspective. Good evening. As councilmen and women for the town of Marlborough, you represent all of Marlborough's citizens. It is your job to take actions that reflect the will of the majority. I'm not sure there are enough people in this room tonight to represent all of the town. The bottom line is you're supposed to represent everybody. I did some analysis, and there are 7.71 linear miles of Marlborough Mountain ridgeline, considering the start at the Orange County border and proceeding north through the town of Lloyd. I realize this is not practical or doable, but technically, if I do the math, you could put a house on each square ridgeline acre, so landowners on the ridge could, if they chose to, erect 193 houses. And based upon your proposal, they could all be sitting on top of the ridge. How would that look? This law change may have to do with individual property rights, but changing this law ought to reflect what the townspeople think. What the ridgeline landowners want could be completely different than what the townspeople want. The board doesn't just represent a few landowners who own property on the ridgeline. You represent all the citizens of Marlborough, including the 6,296 registered voters who reside here. You and I spoke this afternoon, Scott, and you indicated to me, if I understood you correctly, that the board is in favor of eliminating the 50-foot building restriction. But you should be approaching this from a neutral position. You should not decide one way or the other until you have heard all of the input, both pro and con, from all of the citizens who want to be heard. That is only fair. That's the only fair approach, the only democratic approach to take. Since the board does not appear to be neutral on this issue, I believe the fairest approach may be to conduct a public referendum. We are dealing with a Marlborough natural beauty asset. Let the 6,296 registered voters of Marlborough decide. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anybody else? On either of the, well, come on up, sir. Yep.
Good evening. My name is Dan Heavens. My wife and I own 40 Mountain Road. We also own 800 feet of the ridgeline. So if there's anyone here, maybe someone else is here that owns part of the ridgeline, this will directly, excuse me, affect us. So I didn't know about this until Friday. I would have assumed that there would have been more thought put into this. I would have been notified. We were not. Seems very rushed. And it just seems like there's been a lot of effort put into rules to protect the ridgeline, that there'd be studies done, research done to understand the impact. Environmentally, just the aesthetically, because I can tell you there's issues with the water runoff right now on the ridgeline. It's running right into our house. I was afraid for our carriage house to be swept away past week. This will directly affect that. It seems to encourage development, correct?
Sure.
So you're encouraging the development, right? So were there any agricultural studies done? Soil, water?
No, not yet.
Yeah. So it's planned?
This is what a public hearing's for, to get input, right? Give us input.
Okay.
That's why we have them.
Right. Okay. I appreciate that. So I agree with Doug that we should have a little more discussion about this. It seems very rushed. I just hope that you can do that. And that's all I'm asking.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, no, you want to come up? You don't have nothing prepared? I'm shocked.
But I've been here, okay, my name's Ono de Jong, and I have been here for a little over 20 years. And when I first came here, I'm from on Reservoir Road, I met Cindy and Elsie and Kay and other people because they were going to build a few houses on the Troncali. And at that point, I went through a stack of, everybody here, I'm assuming, has read the development plans. They're like, it's a big stack. So I'm expecting you that you actually read it and you know it. I remember going through it and looking at it and being educated by Cindy. And at the time, it was a very conservative board, probably more conservative than I would have thought. But anyway, But I saw the trials and tribulations of trying to move that and to get the whole board to get, to come in line with that. And I just feel that, this is like 20 years on, and you're kind of destabilizing something that really should require, if nothing else, as much time and input that it took to put it in there in the first place. Because at this point, the changes, if you do make them, are not change. You can't change it back. You ruin it, you break it, it's done for. And I think that for generations to come, including your kids, if they end up living here, I think it would be a negative, not a positive. And I think it would, the changes would be radical. I wouldn't expect conservatives to want to have such change, because it would change the atmosphere of Marlborough. And all you have to do is go a little closer to the city and you see exactly what I mean. Anyway, I just find it interesting that after 20 years of being there, and after working on this very, seeing this happen in front of me, I wasn't working on it, I was just seeing it happen. I'm seeing it happen now. It's just very interesting to see this again, and to see to see what it takes, and what it takes to take down something that took that much work to put in and that much thought. So it's very curious that you could so quickly undo something, that could have such significant implications. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Anybody else? Come on up. Thank you.
How's it going? I'm Tyler Pagano, born and raised Marlborough, New York. I see a lot of faces here, all seem to be slightly different generation than myself, all have kind of a closed-minded view on this topic. I just want to look at it as progress sometimes means change. So we're looking at changing things. It doesn't necessarily fit your point of view, but you also have to think there's other generations coming after you who may not agree with what you have to say. So I'm not against a public referendum, but at the same point, I believe that my generation and others who may be slightly younger than me are not here tonight. They don't come to public town meetings. So if you want to get the true vote, I would say a public referendum may be the best option, but you're not going to find out here with this grouping of people what the whole town believes. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Hold on. I'm just writing stuff down here. I do write everything down. Anybody else on either of the changes of proposal? And again, these are proposals. That's why I was saying this is why we have the public hearings. We like to get feedback. It's great to see people here. Don't think we don't like that people come and voice their opinions. We do, because what we think is something that might be something that we might want to change. Maybe it isn't the right thing to do, but that's why we have public hearings. So I appreciate everybody coming out tonight and giving their opinion, because that's what we want. We want feedback. And unfortunately, in today's world, we don't really get a lot of feedback except for negative feedback. But that's okay. That's what we took the jobs for. So I will give one last chance. Anybody else want to speak? If not, I'm going to ask. Requested by the CIC, I will ask the board if they want to keep the public hearing open, because that request was made. So if I get a motion in a second, then we can do that.
I'll make that motion.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm a little bit not clear. The terms and definition of ridge line and 50 feet below the ridge line. Now, is the ridge line, we're talking about the ridge of trees or the ridge of land, and 50 feet, is that 50 feet below to the top of the roof, or 50 feet?
You got to be 50 feet. So this has been the reason a lot of this came up is because there was a discussion made between our engineering and myself and applicants at the planning board. Is it 50 feet from elevation? Is it 50 feet from north to south? This kept going back and forth. So this is where this all came from, just so everybody knows. It was a discrepancy in how we figure out what it was. I mean, 50 feet to the north or 50 feet to the south is a lot different than 50 feet from the top of the ridge to the bottom of the ridge, right? And it's kind of clear, in my opinion, it's 50 feet from elevation. So it's kind of what the law is saying. So basically, with the gentleman that brought up the drawing is pretty simplistic, but that's pretty much what he's saying about, right? You know, if you go 50 feet below the ridge, obviously you don't see a house roof on top of the mountain, right? But if you eliminate 50 feet, of course, now it's the top of the roof line, right? You're going to be above the ridge line. Typical houses are like, what, 35 feet, somewhere in that range, right? So, you know, if it goes above 35 feet, so that, you know, like, I think Ms. Lanzetta, you know, the planning board gave us some recommendation of maybe going forward. There could be a compromise here if we want to get a little change, right? Again, this is not a public hearing as far as we're answering questions, because we might not do any change, right? So it's just a matter of discussion and more conversation, right? So, and doing more data research and stuff. But we have to introduce the law change in order to get public feedback, right? So that's what we do. It's not that we were trying to get by on anybody. That's, you know, like we introduce it, and then we try to get public input, and then we do some research and see, is this something we really want to do, right? So, you know, yes, we are for development. So that's one of the reasons why this was put about, because everybody also asked us that we want a grocery store, and we want different restaurants, and we want different things in our community, right? Well, in order to get those things, you have to have rooftops, right? So development for our board is pretty, you know, one of our strong points that we want to try to push. Now, maybe this is one that we don't look at doing. It's just one that came up. So, again, that's why we have the public hearing, and we really appreciate your feedback. But yeah, Manny, it's basically from the ridge line right at the top of the hill, 50 feet down.
50 feet down to the basement, to the top of the roof?
It would be to the roof line.
To the roof line, so it's to the top to the roof.
Yep, and that's how I interpret it. After our conversation today, I went back again to make sure that's how my interpretation was, and that's how I read it in the interpretation of the law. Yes, Howard? No, it's the ridge line itself, right at the bottom part, where the ground is. This is the ridge line is the ground, then you have to be 50 feet below the ridge line there. It is a little ambiguous, exactly. It's kind of... Yeah, it might be better word. Like, again, that's why we have this. That's a good point. It's these things come, like I said, we don't usually look at changing codes like just off the cuff. It's when people go to the planning board and things come up and we get questions and we start reviewing what is out there, right? So there's more development starting to happen in the town, and certain people want to start development up in the hilltops and the ridge line. And these things come up in the planning board process. So as they come up, we review the codes. And then we make a decision. Do we think this is the right decision or not to make a change? And then, you know, we have to decide. So, you know, we thought this was something that wasn't huge of a change, but obviously it's a little more of a huge of a change, right? So we're getting a lot of good feedback tonight, which is a good thing. Again, that's why we have these. So I don't want to keep repeating myself, but that's why it is. But you know, we're going to take the planning board's recommendations, the county recommendations, and your own recommendations. I write everything down here as you read it, and then I'll go back to the tape and review what you've said too, and we'll answer some of the CAC questions and stuff, and we'll review with Pat Hines, who's our engineer, and we'll go through the process. So that's what the process entails. But again, it's not like we're just going to bypass what the public thinks and make a decision, right? We have to investigate it a little further, right? Obviously. So now, if no one came to our public hearing, then it's a different story. Then we figure, okay, everybody's agreeable to what we're doing. When people come out, that's a good thing. Then we take a pause, right? So, but anything else? Anybody else? I see someone else in the back.
You're not allowed to use the ridge line. So is that
That's a good question from my assessor. I agree with you, sir. Yeah, I'd have to my assessor answer that question. I couldn't answer that directly for you, but I will write that one down. That's a good question. Yeah. Yeah, when we looked at it, you know, specifically I looked at it, it was like when we said just take 50 feet out, it still says you have to build below the ridge line, meaning you have to be below the, like, in my opinion, I looked at it as, well, you really can't build right on top of the ridge line, because I'm thinking top of your roof, you can't be above the ridge line. So in some respects, it almost saying you have to be 35 feet below the ridge line indirectly, right? That's how I looked at it, is instead of having an ambiguous 50-foot number in there, I looked at, that's the way I interpreted it, right? So everybody's interpretation of how something's written can be looked at differently. But when I looked at it, I said, why do we have 50 feet if a house is 35 feet and in there it says you can't build above the ridge line? That means basically you can't build 35 feet above the ridge line. That's how I interpret it, without having a number in there. But if we have to make it more specific, then you make it more specific, and it sounds like we got to look at making it more specific. Well, let me just write that down for the gentleman so I don't forget. Okay, I got it. Yes, sir.
One more question. So, there are houses that were built after this ridgeline protection were in place. Are we going to change and maybe relook at those building permits?
Which ones, Steve, come on up, because I don't want to have just people talking in the audience, because we are filming stuff too. Sorry.
Steve Santini, long resident of Marlborough. The question is, so this ridgeline has been put in 2005. There's been 11 houses built on the ridgeline, as it's stated, that are now occupied. Are we going to go back and revisit these building permits that were issued?
So, so you're saying since the law has been passed, people have built above the 50-foot ridge line, right? Is that that's what you're? I'd have to actually investigate all that. I mean, I haven't looked back. I mean, again, I haven't specifically looked at every one of the people that built on the ridge. So I'd have to look back at that. Why would that be, right?
Good question.
So I mean, again, if people were given permission to build above the ridge line and not obeying our laws, then that's something that we have to look at, right? Why would someone get a permit and being passed through the planning board process and the engineering? Again, if you look at the ridge law itself, there's a lot of engineering checklists on there that the engineer has to sign off on. So if someone built above the ridge line, Pat Hines would have had to sign off on all those. So I'd have to actually look at all those, but I will definitely follow up 100% on that. So, yep. I gotta write it down. Anyone else? Don't be shy. Yeah, we're getting to that. We're getting to that. Yeah, I was just asking if anybody else has any other questions. I'm being everybody every time I say stop, I should say just stop, but every keep asking here. Yes, Ona.
I'd love to see the back and forth.
Yeah, I do too. That's why I'm doing this, because I actually love the back and forth. Hey, look, we only usually have 3 people here, so do we have an audience tonight? I kind of like it, so it's I'm letting it go. So, but having said that, if I get a motion by the board to keep the public hearing open and have the CAC look into it further, if they like,
I'll make that motion, Scott. I'll make that motion to keep it open. I feel with the concern that's going on here, we may get more people.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor. And that's for just the cannabis law. I am going to make a motion to close the public hearing.
No, that was the original.
I'm sorry, for the Ridgeline law, sorry, as I said that backwards. I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing for the cannabis law, section 155-12, and for, well, I guess I got to leave the 155 open because it's all into one. So I'll leave that open. But I'm going to close the public hearing, ask for a motion to close the public hearing for cannabis law, section 155-12, and I've written down all the comments, and just to give everybody some feedback, the board has already been talking about the distance, so it's nothing that we haven't been talking about. So, but I do appreciate the feedback because it kind of like gives us assurance that what we're looking towards is something that everybody else is thinking about too. So, yes, Cindy.
I was in attendance at the Ulster County Planning Board when it was discussed, and they mentioned that we had neglected to put in under the use, the various use zones, like exactly where we would be allowing it, whether it be HD.
We did put it in. It was in HD. It was specific to HD.
Only in HD?
Yeah.
Okay, because they must have missed that.
Yeah, it's in there. I mean, if it's in, I mean, I'll double check, but that's what we, it's HD. So yeah, yep. Yeah, because we originally talked about C1, HD, or both, and then we just limited it to HD at this point. So, yeah. And I would need a motion to close the public hearing for the cannabis law change.
I'll make a motion to close the cannabis law change.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, I will give a 5-minute pause here if anybody would like to leave and not have to listen to the rest of our meeting if you just came for the public hearing. And then after the 5 minutes, I will reopen our regular meeting. Thank you, everyone.
I think it has. I think they have to change it. I think they have to change it to lower number. Hey, you bet. What are you doing up here? Where you living?
Hey, Howard. Happy New Year to you.
Oh, yeah? Same thing. Yep. Matthew's up in Albany.
Living up there.
Yeah, he's bought a house.
You
Yeah.
married?
Got 2 kids.
No way. Really?
Yeah. 2 boys. 2 boys.
Yeah? How old are you?
5 and 2.
Really? See, I was in Florida for 12 years.
I know you were. I thought you were still there.
Yeah, I came back. My parents were doing the snowboard. So I bought a house up here.
Oh, okay. They're in Goshen when they come up, right?
No, they're in Highland with me now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I bought a house up there right by the town board.
Okay. Yeah, tell them I said hello. I didn't know they were up
Yeah,
here.
they're back in Florida now. It's cold.
Yeah, I know.
They're back. They come up. They stay for like April to.
And Jeremy's still doing the thing up in Alaska?
Years ago, his wife got tired of being gone half the year.
What's he doing now?
He owns a paint company.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we all work together. We do most insurance, remodeling, stuff like that. Now I'm back
Scott.
here working with
Scott.
doing residential construction.
Yeah.
I have my own business down there.
Oh, good.
So, I mean, I keep busy.
You like it up here?
I mean, I like it down there, but summers are hot. Up here, winters are cold.
So you're doing the snowbird thing too?
No, I wish. I wish I could. At least I can put more layers on. I can only take some clothes off in the summer.
Yeah.
We're working in them new construction houses. I got no AC. No. This shit just dying. This is my girlfriend, Jess. This is my small.
How you doing? Nice to meet you.
Good friends, fathers, and my baseball coach, my child.
Yeah, he lost a championship.
Oh, come on, for real?
You did. You did.
I did.
You and your father. He should never had you out there.
He didn't know I was there.
Yeah, well, then we won't blame him. Yeah, we're playing a championship game. I saved him for the last game, and he breaks his wrist in the afternoon before the game.
Yeah, roller hockey. Come on, let's go play for a little bit. Whose fault it was? It was Mikey's fault.
Infelice? Yeah. He did it on purpose because he didn't want our team to win.
He used to run down there playing. All right, Mr. Maldonado.
Nice seeing you. Yep. Say hello.
I will talk first.
All right? Yeah. you can't sell and make it, right? Just like the electric.
That's good.
Hey.
I know, I told Amy you gotta come up and do a tour. I mean, I was there once or twice, Tommy, but I wanna get the board members.
Oh, it's all good.
Scott, you had those two drawings that guy did? Who had? Can I see those drawings again?
There you go, bud.
Okay, if everybody that's going to be leaving go out in the hallway, we're going to start back up in our regular scheduled meeting. I'm
Well,
done here.
this is a bad representation.
I'm
of
told.
this right here.
Michigan started. Who's winning the game?
Yeah.
I go center line down the middle of that, and at the center point of that, I come over vertically, and at 50 feet, the roof can be no higher than that. So the roof can be no higher than the lady's heads, right? So if that was the highest peak, I have to go center line of the ridge, that's the mountain. I go down the center line, I create a point in the middle, it's the center line. And I gotta come over and come down 50 feet, let's say it's the lady's heads, and that's the highest point of the roof. So that's it.
Yeah, like this picture right here. That, so is that the way the law is interpreted?
Yeah.
No.
That's basically saying yes, no, and maybe. I didn't think it's in the original. I didn't go. To be honest with you, I ain't 100% sure. It could be in the original.
But I mean, Pat had to sign off on it.
He signed off on the subdivision, yeah. Of course he did. Here's what your thing is. Less than 50, there's a yes, no, and maybe on the original construction. Slopes less than 15%. Absolutely not. 15 to 20, approved by the engineer. More than 25, disturbed. So if it's 15 or less, you can build an original. Not. If it's 15 to 25, then the engineer's going to look at it and make a determination. If it's more than 25% of slope, then nobody can build it. But if it's less than 15% of slope, all activity is permitted. You can build it. If it's less than 15% of slope.
Low house.
But that's why I sent this one to back to Pat, because it could be 50%. Construction, which I had to send it back. I have no idea. I'm not an engineer. I can't tell you what the percent of the slope is. So our code says yes, no, and maybe based on the percent of the slope. Absolutely. All activities are permitted. Yeah, well, it doesn't matter because there's an exception to the code anyway, which gives it to me and to Pat.
Pat could always override on the building inspector.
If the town engineer's opinion would render the existing lot unbuildable, the town engineer may recommend the issuance of the building department may issue a building permit
turn mine off?
for the house. I could issue it anyway. Absolutely. Pat could say, listen, Russ, he's paying all this money on this lot, he should be able to build it. Good view.
everybody, we're going to get back to the meeting. So now we're going to do a normal town board meeting for January 8th. And I need a motion to approve the agenda. I need a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. I need a motion to approve the December 11th, 2023 town board meeting minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve the December 11th Town Board meeting minutes.
Need a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Motion to approve the January 3rd, 2024 reorg meeting minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve the January 3rd reorg meeting minutes.
Need a second? All in favor? Aye. And I need a motion to approve the January 3rd, 2024 special meeting minutes.
I'm on a roll, so we're going to make the motion to approve the January 3rd special meeting minutes.
I need a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Authorization to pay the bills of $236,659.81. I need a motion to pay the bills.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Any comments on the specific agenda? Anybody have any comments? Yes, Mickey.
I'm just wondering, I didn't have a chance to look at the agenda today before I came. Will Old Indian Trail be included on the agenda?
I couldn't hear you.
Will Old Indian Trail be included on the agenda?
On our agenda?
Well, we want the public to report on what's happening on Old Indian Trail.
If someone asks a question, I'll report on it, yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Sure. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to go to reports of the department. And as we previously stated last year, if a board member has a question on the department, we will have the department head who's here come up and answer questions. So I know the only two are here are the chief and the building code enforcement officer and the town clerk. So does anybody have any questions for either of them?
No.
No? Okay, you guys are off the hook tonight. So we have the reports. They're online. If anybody wants to read them, they're online. And reports of committee, Recreation Committee. Councilman Sesson, you want to give any updates on where we're going?
Sure. The Recreation Committee has their first meeting of the year tomorrow night at Bricks at 6 o'clock. Their first order of business will be starting to plan the Easter egg hunt. We reached out to the Sports Dome in Milton to see if they'd be willing to host the event again, and they are just checking their schedule and getting their dates in order before giving us some date options. But the committee felt that the Saturday morning option that they had implemented last year actually worked out a lot better for families and was a lot easier for people to attend than the weeknights prior. So of course that's what we'll shoot for again. We're just at the mercy of the Sports Dome schedule. But I think that's the big thing. And then you had heard earlier, well, at the end of last year, that the committee is going to be getting more involved in the logistics of the Memorial Day parade this year. So that'll be the second order of business as they're eager to get started on the planning
I think
for that.
I let the cat out of the bag. I wasn't supposed to. I don't know. Was I supposed to tell everybody that? But that's a good thing. You guys do a great job.
They're just assisting with the logistics.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, all right. Well, thank you guys again for another great year we had. And I can't wait to see what this year holds. So, Emergency Management Preparedness Committee, there's nothing new since our last update, which we just updated it and was passed at our reorg meeting. Again, thank you to my deputy supervisor who worked on this all last year. The county continually works with us on this to update this as things change. So it's a living document, as I say, so it always changes. CAC, Mickey, you want to do a report?
At our December meeting, we discussed at length creating an event around Earth Day. We will continue that discussion at our next meeting scheduled for this Thursday, January 11th. We are gratified that our Facebook page continues to have increased viewership. We will be working with the Deputy Town Clerk to interface our Facebook with the town website, similarly to how the Town Recreation Committee works, rather than creating an individual website for the CAC. Janelle Kazarek and I completed the 4 scheduled meetings with the cohort, and I will be seeking their assistance in the next months to complete the greenhouse gas inventory. Featured at the most recent cohort Zoom, the completion of a fleet inventory of town-owned vehicles to create a benchmark document would gain us 200 points or more, depending on the number of vehicles involved. It also seems like a relatively easy spreadsheet to prepare. It would include the type of vehicle and the fuel type, the fuel consumption figures, and similar data. I spoke with Highway Department Secretary Kathy, who has informed me that she has a list of all the Highway Department vehicles, which she would be willing to share if given authorization to do so. So I'm asking that you give us access to her records and allow her to be available to us to complete the inventory. Likewise,
Do we get points regardless of what the fuel consumption is? Because most of the town's vehicles are not really...
very good question.
Good.
This is a benchmark, like a baseline document.
Right.
So, first of all, that gives the cohort, which like is a regional thing, information on how many gas emissions would be emitted based on the mileage, et cetera, et cetera. It would also help us in future purchases if we could, it helps us show that purchasing of an XYZ vehicle would would reduce those emissions, which would qualify us for grant money. And the more points we have in the climate smart communities treasury, that would give us more access to higher grants.
Okay.
So that's the reason why we're just doing a benchmark.
As you would guess, like most of our vehicles aren't very energy efficient as far as electric or anything. It's all diesel powered, high end engines for the police department and all that. So yeah, not very fuel efficient. So
right now they're not in that size vehicle. They're not making the electric yet.
And that is also part of the inventory. I think it would also give them data that they need to push for availability of these types of vehicles that are more efficient with gas consumption, you know, the hybrid type vehicles.
Hybrids
are... I know they have their own particular problem with chargers.
The problem is not only chargers, but you only get, most of them only get 20 to 26 miles on the electric before it needs to be charged again. In order to fully charge it, you'd have to go to a charging station and have dinner, or you have to have one in your house.
Right.
It takes 2 hours.
Right.
The one they give you with the car takes almost 24 hours to charge.
Right.
And they're sort of, you know, unless you have 24 hours to wait. I know they're having a problem with the one in the county right now with the bus. Because it's only able to come down here and back, and then it's done for the day.
It's done for the day. Well, at any rate, the whole
good.
purpose of this is just to get our baseline information.
Good.
So I would also need access to the police department statistics and the building inspector's car and water departments as well, any town-owned vehicles. And if you would authorize that and direct us to the proper individuals to contact, we will work with this as a priority. There have been announcements of several additional grant opportunities for municipalities for the year 2024. And the CAC will be reviewing which of these would be the most effective to pursue for the town's needs. But it is good, it is good to know that we as a CAC have access to many resources outside of the town to help us qualify for some grant money. Specifically, if we could be included in commenting on the plans for the highway department building renovations, for example, our contractors might be able to adapt the plans to coincide with the grant monies that I know are available to improve efficiency while paying for the specific improvement. So I believe the RFP has already been released for those renovations? Not yet.
not yet. March, hopefully. So I mean, I could set up a meeting with you and GPI, CAC and GPI. That's our engineering firm.
Okay.
So we can do that. Just send me an email so I don't forget.
Okay,
But
so
I will write it down anyway. But
we'll good to know that, because now I can compile a list of what's in those grant opportunities instead of us trying to, connect what we want to do with that. Will connect what the grant money will provide for us and include that if it's possible.
Sure.
Let's see. Thank you for that. We prepared our initial comments and questions in regard to the Ridgeline Protection Law via phone calls and individual inquiries among some CAC members, and these were summarized and presented to you tonight at the public hearing. And I really appreciate you extending the public hearing to give us a little bit of time just to consolidate our thoughts on that. We're looking forward to a very successful 2024 and working both for you and with you. I appreciate it.
And we could get, Tina has all the vehicles. So she's the one you contact. I don't have a problem with that unless a board member has a problem with that.
No, but
I mean, as long as we don't give out vehicle VIN numbers and stuff, I would just say, I don't know if they need that.
I don't think the VIN numbers are. I think
Just the
it's
make and year, right?
The make and year, what
Make,
type of
year,
fuel it
model.
uses,
And the
then-
engine.
I'm sorry?
Type of engine.
It might be a type of engine, yeah. They differentiate between heavy-duty trucks and medium-duty trucks, and I don't even think our town owns any heavy-duty, because those are huge plows.
Well, the big plow trucks are the heavy duty.
We do own heavy-duty trucks.
We
We
have
own
a
a
lot of
majority of heavy-duty trucks. That's our highway department.
Yeah, the whole highway department's heavy duty.
I just want to I have a question. I'm like, what is the purpose of getting all our vehicles again? Information for what?
So they could get a baseline of what we're using.
And what is the goal? Let's just get right to the point. What is the
The
goal?
goal is to find out how many emissions are used by how many hours the vehicles are driven.
And what
If
is
they're
the solution?
Gasoline.
What's the solution we're looking for? To go possibly electric? Is that what the solution is?
No, I mean, it's a possibility that.
But it's not a possibility, because I'm going to look at something, not everybody's going to want to hear this, but I'm going to look at things from a practical standpoint.
Sure.
Let's take in consideration the storm we just got. Let's take in consideration that the power may have gone out. Let's say it went out for 5 days. We have no way to charge our electric trucks. Somebody's having a heart attack up on Mount Zion Road. We can't get up there because we have no vehicles to get up to the top of the mountain.
But this is not.
I'm just saying,
Right.
I see a lot of effort being put into this, but if we look at it, and let's face reality, let's look at it from a practical standpoint. This is not practical. And I feel that there's a lot of other things that we could put our effort into. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I will say this is not practical.
Well, I will go back to my understanding of what the necessity or the reasoning is for gathering the data. It's not specifically to say you have to do this or you should do this.
Then why are we doing it?
It is to give the overall big goal is to reduce carbon emissions throughout the entire state. So first of all, you have to know how many you have, and then you can monitor the reduction in the whole state. So gas-operated vehicles are just a very small part of that, but in terms of a municipality, all of the vehicles we own are going to be using gasoline. I'm not denying that. And I'm not saying that we should be getting electric vehicles. I'm saying if you wanted to get an electric vehicle, say for example the Dare car that mostly goes back and forth around town that can recharge easily, if there's grant money to pay for an electric vehicle or to give you half of that money, that saves the taxpayers that amount of money, that many thousands of dollars, because we could apply for a grant and possibly get it. That's the benefit that I
All
see.
right, I have to be, then I'll gain more education on it, because the way it sounds to me is, on the whole scope of things, I find whatever kind of money we're going to save between gasoline and electric is minuscule on the whole scope of things.
And you could be very, very right.
I'm pretty
because
sure I'm
we
right.
are a-
I'm pretty
we
sure
are a
I'm right.
town, we have a small population, but if it's part of, if this is, I look at it this way, it's work that the CAC can do to gather information. The benefit it gives us is not so much in the information on how we're going to use that specific information, it's how many points we're going to get for getting the information that will give us money to do something else, like maybe, I don't know, planting trees someplace else, developing our waterfront properties, our dockside properties, putting in all the landscaping around the community building or the highway department building. those are the things that I look at as exciting opportunities. And the CIC is a volunteer group. We're willing to do it. And it's just to get the points at this point. And as I said, this last cohort meeting that I attended via Zoom, it was incredible how many millions of dollars are being circulated for the year 2024, that there are possibilities. I can't remember all of them. I was jotting them down, but there's possibilities, and that's what I'm saying.
I've been in the car business for 35 years, and I've been in meetings about electric vehicles. It's not the right time to switch to them right now. They have nothing ready with infrastructure, how to make them run, anything like that. We've totally stayed away from the electric cars, but when you're talking about grants, we get grants for people that want to buy them, but the bottom line is, they're paying the same as somebody that's buying the gas, because that grant is paying for the battery.
And that's exactly why my husband and I have not purchased an electric or
Right.
hybrid vehicle right
And
now.
100,000 mile warranty, you try to replace that electric battery, you're not going to, you're just gonna.
I understand. It
And
has
they-
its
and
own
they have
environmental
perfected it.
issues. I am not here to debate that.
No,
I
I know.
agree with you, but in the overall things that we can do something that could possibly benefit the town.
I'm all for that.
That's what I'm for.
I just wanted to give you some of the information that I gather.
Thank
I've
you.
been in
Yeah.
a couple of meetings and stuff like that.
Okay.
You're doing good.
Thank
Just
you.
keep it up.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. IT committee, I could just tell you that as far as the community center is concerned, a lot of the IT work is going into the building in the past 2 weeks. This week they installed the projector screens. They were putting in the telephone lines today. They put in the new cable service last week. Today they were there putting in all of the Wi-Fi lines and the automatic door opener lines. So there's a lot of stuff going on there for IT. In the coming months, obviously, we were going to have a couple of computers that we have to reorder for staff members, but nothing else bigger than the community center. So that is moving forward pretty rapidly in the last couple of weeks. Milton Train Station Foundation, I have not gotten an update from them. Milton Land and Citizens Committee, I have not gotten an update from them. Marlborough Hamlet Economic Development Committee, we haven't got that report from anybody. Meet Me in Marlborough, I did not get one from Sheila this week. I'll either get it tomorrow or next week, but once she gets it to me, I'll report it at the next meeting. Hamlet and Milton Associations Committee, I haven't heard anything from them. And the Transfer Station Review Committee, there's nothing new on that. I will make a note, and I should have said this at our moment of silence, that Larry passed away at the transfer station this past week. Larry was a long time employee of the town, and I will say he's in 90 years old. He worked almost up to the day he passed. About 6 weeks ago, he had to finally step down, and he went home with his son to Florida. And the doctor did say it was going to be roughly 6 weeks, and I got the call just past week that he did pass. And I just want to thank Larry and his family for all the time that they gave to our town and what he meant for that transfer station. I was like his little baby, and it was a purpose for him getting up every day, and we appreciate what he has done for us. So thank you to Larry, and God bless his soul. Rest in peace. So that's what I'll say about that. Presentations, we have no presentations tonight. POMDAC rehabilitation update. So I kind of gave you an update of where we're doing with the IT stuff inside. I also gave you an update that all the sheetrock's complete, all the walls are painted, drop ceilings are going in. The finishing wiring is happening now with the emergency exit signs. Heat is working. Both units are working. The gas lines have been hooked up. Central Hudson has put in the new meter. The Ansel system is going in. Ray Chung is going to be up there tomorrow, finishing that for the kitchen area. So there's a lot of moving parts going on at the community center in the last few weeks. So my full anticipation is that we should be ready by April for an opening, but I'm not going to hold myself to that because there's a lot of exterior work that still needs to be done as far as blacktopping, plantings, and things of that nature for handicap accessibility and stuff like that. So I'm pushing for April, and we'll go from there. So, but I'm very happy with the progress that we've been seeing. So that's where we're at with that. Does anybody have any new business from the board? Nothing? All right. Correspondence. I don't believe I have any correspondence. Nobody in the police department retired this week, so we don't have no correspondence. Public comment. This is the time of the meeting we have the public could come up and make a public comment. And do I have anybody that wants to make a public comment? Come on up, Marianne. Come on up.
Well, just by coincidence, we got the letter today that we spoke about 1 month ago.
Yep.
Yeah, that was quite a coincidence. I got it at 3 o'clock today. The letter, it's not even worth the paper that it's written on, okay? This is a letter from Mr. Marticello to my attorney, Mr. Cantor, about the old Indian Trail road that we live on that collapsed. The road collapsed April 23rd of this year, and nothing, absolutely nothing has been done. We are forced to travel the south end of Old Indian Trail, which is dangerous at best. We have tried to work with Mr. Cochran. My attorney has tried to work with Mr. Marticello, and that's futile, totally futile. All I've done is spent money. My husband and I have spent money on attorney's fees because, unfortunately, the people in this town are not people of their words. We've lived here a long time. We have a beautiful home. We have tried, we were putting it on the market. The road collapsed. And we've had people look at it. Our home is lovely. It's worth a lot of money. But unfortunately, nobody wants it because I have a huge barricade that's almost in the middle of my driveway, which forces my husband and I to make three-point turns to come in and out of our driveway. The most recent letter I got was today at 3 o'clock from my lawyer, from Mr. Marticello, which says absolutely nothing. This is just, they knew I was coming tonight, so we better keep her out, keep her quiet for a while. The first thing is, they refer to this collapse as a washout. That road did not wash out. That road collapsed. The road collapsed because it was patched by the highway superintendent or whomever. It was broken by Consorti Brothers, who were delivering things down to the train station area. He brought heavy equipment, broke the road. Mr. Lange repaired it with a patch, and it collapsed. It did not wash out. They've tried to accuse us of our driveway causing the collapse. I had to hire an engineer to tell them that they are wrong. Our driveway did nothing. We have a home that was built 19 years ago by architects, engineers. Our home was built properly. Our driveway was not designed to cause a collapse of a road. Okay. Supposedly, whomever approached our neighbors that live above us, asking, I'm assuming, if they could possibly look into their property to give us maybe an access to go around their property, or they need, give it an easement to the town of I don't know how many feet. I would really like that proven to me, and I'm sure my attorney would like the same. You say the neighbors won't give their permission to explore using part of their property. Give us a letter. Give us a copy of that letter.
Not a problem at all.
Very good.
Not a problem.
We'll take a, you might want to make a note of that.
Yeah,
Give us
I
a
have the letter.
copy of that letter, and who approached those girls,
My
ladies,
attorney.
that own that property? They bought this property 1 year ago for $1 million. When I spoke to them, which Mr. Cochran sent me to speak to them, they didn't even know where Old Indian Trail was. They live up on Watson. It's kind of hard to explain. Old Indian Trail, where's that? I said, well, that's the piece that blah, 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 blah. They didn't have a clue. As far as I know, you've never had an engineer talk to them, assess the issue. All you do, I don't know where you come up with these ideas, but we would really like to have a copy of that letter showing what was said to them. If you write a letter to somebody, we need 50 feet of your property for X number of feet or whatever, that's confusing. These ladies paid $1 million for that property. I don't blame them. They're afraid. They're not stupid girls. They're very bright. But I think it should be explained to them. And also, there is something called eminent domain, which you told me last time. The town doesn't do that. Well, I don't know why, but nonetheless, the town doesn't do that. Okay? So now the understanding or your plan from this, pardon my language, half-ass letter says you're going to dead end where the collapse occurred, and you're going to fix the south end. You're going to put a nice little piece of blacktop where there isn't blacktop. The south end is dangerous. I've asked for guide rails to be put up. If we have to go the south end, which we do have to because the north end is barricaded, it has to be made safe. We've asked you that and asked you and asked you. We've begged. You removed a few trees. The blacktop that exists there is uprooted. Trees are in the way. Poles are hanging out all over the place. It's an absolute disgrace. We pay $15,000 a year taxes. I want something for my money. We are community-minded people. We have done so much for this town. My husband built that train station, 12 years of his hard labor, all volunteer work. You talk about the train station, how wonderful it is. If it wasn't for him, it'd be nothing more than a pile of crap. This nonsense with Central Hudson about the poles, Scott, you and I talked about Central Hudson 2 or 3 days after the collapse. You knew Corey. Corey was going to get on those poles for you. Don't worry, it's going to happen. We're going to do it. The first time I met with you, you gave me a hug and shook my hand and told...
And you also, Mary Ann, what did I tell you? You also need easements agreement from landowners that don't give them.
Scott,
you can't do things if landowners who own property do not want to give easements. I cannot make people give easements.
I'm not...
So people won't give Central Hudson an easement. So Central Hudson has been working on a new design to try to come up with alternative ways to get the electric off the road the way it currently is. It has been being worked on. It doesn't happen overnight. It does, and I told you from the beginning, this could be over a year. It is over a year. It could be 2 years. So I'm just telling you, I told you that from day one.
You told
I told
me
you
from
day one, I will do everything I can, but this could be a year to 2 years. That's what I said.
You did not say to Scott.
That's why I'm not saying it. Okay, your 3 minutes is up, but thank you very much for your comments.
Excuse me, I'm not quite done.
Your 3 minutes is up. Thank you very much for your comments. Thank you. Anybody else have a public comment? Yes, ma'am. Come on. Sure, absolutely.
Hi, Mary Ann Galley. I live on Old Indian Road in Milton. Just a question.
Yep.
So the December 18th Marlborough Planning Board referred to the town board a proposal for zoning modification or waiver that's going to impact us because it affects property adjacent to us. And so I just wanted to ask what we could expect in the way of time frame.
So I'm having a discussion with attorneys on this because my opinion is I don't think the planning board should be asking us for that. It should be going to the zoning board for that recommendation. And I haven't got that, because the holidays and everything else.
Sure.
I just haven't got any clear answer on that.
Okay.
Because my opinion is if there's a zoning variance of any kind, basically is kind of what they're asking for, that it's not the town board's decision, it's the zoning board's. But as soon as I get that answer, then I could appropriately either recommend it to the zoning board or we'll take action ourselves. But I haven't got to that point yet.
So that's fine.
And then we'll
Thank
definitely
you.
let you know. We'll let you know. You want to, if you give me your information to the clerk,
Okay,
I'll
sure.
get you that information. Yep, absolutely. Anybody else have any public comments? Okay, and we're going to go into resolutions. Do I have any resolutions tonight? Here we have nothing, right? We don't have any resolutions tonight. That's a miracle. I thought I was seeing things, but we don't have any resolutions. So, having said that, Ed, you're up.
Yep, I'd like to make a proposal to adjourn the meeting.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Thanks, everybody, and thanks for all your comments. Thank you.